Have you ever wondered what kind of modesty standards we should expect from our teens? Specifically, what should we as Christian parents be expecting from our teens as we are trying to raise them up in the ways of the Lord? That's what we're going to be discussing in this video. Hi, my name is Jessica, and welcome to my Biblical Womanhood channel, Truth at Home, where we connect the truth of the Bible to our daily home life. All right, so I have something special to show you guys today. I'm actually going to be involving two of my older daughters. They're going to be trying on a couple of outfits for us, and that is going to serve as the basis for our modesty talk about modesty for teens. So I actually ordered a couple of things that we're going to be looking at today. One of them is this. Let me just pull these open. This is my first time opening these packages. This one is a skirt, and you will see the full thing modeled for you on one of my daughters. And then the next item that I ordered, and these are for them, by the way, not for me. The next thing I ordered is this dress. Kind of wrinkly out of the package, but we can always iron that later on after we wash it. So I'm gonna have them come out here after they put these on, and then we will look at these dresses on them and discuss the modesty standards. Okay, come on out, girls. This is Coral. She is 12 years old, and she is modeling for us the skirt that I showed you earlier. Back up just a little bit, Coral, so we can see a little bit more. Good. And go ahead and turn around so we can see the whole thing. Very good. Okay, Nyla's next, and she is 14, and she is modeling the dress. Very good. Thank you, Nyla. Okay, girls, come this way. And this is the part of the video where I'm going to be discussing my modesty standards in our family for teens. Now, I'm going to be focusing mainly on skirts and dresses because that's what we do in our family. But some of the things that I talk about in this video, you can also apply to those families who have their girls wear shorts and pants as well. So one of the things that I like about this dress, let's start with the dress actually, is how high up it goes. Now, I try to get clothes that are about collarbone height because as you lean over, it doesn't gape open, so it's just easier to stay modest that way. I mean, you could undo the top button if you wanted to, but I love how this goes all the way up to her collarbone. In the case that we have a shirt that is a little lower, like this green shirt, I will have them wear a camisole or a tank top underneath. And I always try to get it as close to the collarbone as possible. It's not a strict rule that it has to be at the collarbone, but I try to get it as close to there as possible. Okay, so another thing I like about Nyla's dress is I love the drawstring, that it can be tightened or loosened as you need. I love that the dress itself isn't too tight. That's another big thing for modesty, that nothing is clingy and tight. I also love the sleeves. They're not super short. They are a good length so that you don't have any gapes on the side. Sometimes that happens with shirts that are shorter and that show the armpits. Sometimes it gapes open at the side, so at least this way you don't have to worry about it. But I do allow my girls to wear some shorter shirts, shorter sleeve shirts, but I always make sure that the camisole covers up the part that gapes open on the side. So Nyla, let me see. You may have noticed that it's not too tight anywhere and it's a good length. Back up again. The buttons go all the way down, and the length is a very good length down to the calves. Now, I do allow my girls to wear some skirts that are knee length, that go, let's see where your knee is, that go right about here. So there's the knee, and I try to get it right below the knee. I prefer not above the knee, because then when you're sitting down, leaning over, moving around, the skirt just gets up higher. So I try to make right below the knee my shortest standard, or below. Okay, thanks, Nyla. So Coral, she's showing us this skirt. I love the comfortable elastic waist. This is actually not a drawstring, it's just decoration. I love the pattern. It's a peasant style skirt that's tiered. And again, I love the length of this skirt. It's plenty loose, plenty long, and I think that's important. Turn around again. That's important for Modesty. Nice and loose. Longer is better, so that we don't have any modesty issues as we're sitting down, picking something up, moving around, doing things like that. I think that if you're going to have your girls wear shorts, it's more modest for them to wear longer shorts, like the knee-length Bermuda shorts. The shorter you go, the more hard it is to remain modest. But the longer ones that are at least mid-thigh to the knee are going to help your girls to stay modest, whatever they're doing. And if they're looser, that's always better. Same thing for pants. Try for the looser pants, because the tighter they are, the more they hug your body, and it's not very modest that way. So you don't want them to be tight around the behind area or the crotch area. You want them to be loose enough to where they are not hugging your body in those areas, but at the same time not baggy. Now, one thing I've done recently with my girls is I have allowed them to wear some jumpers that I bought for them. Girls, go ahead and get your jumpers so that we can show everybody. I made a little, what some people might call a compromise. I like to think of it as providing balance. I found these jumpers. They are not dress jumpers. They are jumpers with legs. Oh yes, there we go. But they're very loose. And I love the patterns that they had available, the looseness, the buttons for different lengths, and the pockets. And I don't remember what fabric this is made out of, but I can find that out later. My girls really like to wear these. It gives them a feeling of more freedom, because they aren't having to worry about, where their skirt or their dress is as they're sitting down or moving around, because they're still kids and they like to, do things that kids do. So I made a decision to allow them to have these jumpers. And they also do wear pants when they go to horseback riding and things like the skate park or sometimes bike riding. So that's a decision that we've made, where we do allow those things occasionally for certain situations, and the jumpers they wear whenever they feel like it. Okay, girls, thank you so much for showing those things to us. I really appreciate you helping me with this video.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Now I would like to sit down with you and open up the Bible together so that we can look at the modesty issue more closely from a biblical perspective. Let's open up the Bible to 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 9, where it says, "In like manner also, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broided hair or gold or pearls or costly array, but which becometh women, professing godliness with good works." Perhaps many of you have already heard this verse before. I think it applies perfectly to the discussion at hand. I actually looked up the word modesty in the Strong's Concordance. It says it's number G2887. And the word modest in Greek is kosmios. And that's how we English-speaking people pronounce that. I don't know if that's right or not. And this has to do with something being orderly, decorous, of good behavior, modest. And it says it comes from G2889, the word cosmos, spelled with a K. But doesn't that sound similar to our word cosmos with a C, which means orderly arrangement or decoration? And it oftentimes does have to do with the world. So I didn't actually know that this word had this meaning before I looked it up. And it caused me to think more deeply about how God has made the world an orderly place. You know that part in the Bible where it says that God is a God of order? He made the world orderly because he is an orderly God. So he wants us to reflect that orderliness in the way that we present ourselves. So we are ambassadors for Christ. And as we go about our lives, we are representing something about him. And we want to represent him accurately, don't we? We want to represent his orderliness. Another thing I wanted to point out is that there is more to this verse than just the word modesty, right? It says women should adorn themselves in modest apparel with shamefacedness and sobriety. I think those two additional words are important. When we are shamefaced, that means we're able to blush. So many people nowadays have lost their ability to blush. They just show off anything and everything, and their conscience is so insensitive to the effect that they're having on other people, or the potential effect. And Christians can even fall into this when they are maybe they're not thinking too deeply about their choices. They're just kind of going with the flow. They're not intentionally wanting to do something wrong, but it just happens as we go with the flow that we tend to follow the ways of the world instead of the ways of the word. So we need to be careful as Christians that we ourselves, but also the way we're training our children, is training them to be sensitive as opposed to insensitive to how our actions, our behavior, our way of dressing, our words too, I mean, it's all part of the same package, how they are affecting others. Are we being insensitive and unable to blush at the things that we say and that we do and the way that we dress? If so, if we detect that within ourselves and our children, we need to kind of make some adjustments to how we're doing things. And then it says with sobriety, and that just makes me think of the opposite of somebody who's drunk. Sober, right? You know, when you're sober, you're thinking carefully about your choices as opposed to just doing whatever, right? So all of these descriptions seem to really package nicely together. And something I forgot to mention about modesty and the meaning of orderliness is that we want to dress in a way that shows orderliness in our appearance, but we also want to dress in a way that influences people to have orderliness within them. So are we influencing other people to have disorderly passions through the way that we're presenting ourselves? Or are we helping them to remain calm and in control of their passions? Another good point. All right, so that's some basic background of the importance of modesty for the Christian and how Christian parents can guide their children as they're training them to be modest. Now, I'd like to give some encouragement to parents because this video is about how we as parents can train our children to be modest and our teens to be modest and what we should expect of them. But I just want to give you some encouragement. The Bible says to train up a child in the way he should go. In Proverbs 22:6. So we need to take this verse seriously and do our best to train up our children biblically. But I want to add this on here. I feel like this is very important, and this is based on my own experience as a mother. I have 10 children an 11th on the way. 2 of them have already moved out. So I feel like I'm learning some things along the way. We need to train up our children in the way they should go and take our job as parents seriously. But children have free will. We can do everything to teach them correctly, but they have a free will. They may decide to not do what we taught them to do at a certain point in their lives. The test of our parenting is not always how closely our children adhere to our teachings that we raise them with. Of course, there should be some fruit. Of course, if we have done the right things, there should be some kind of effect in their lives. And yet at the same time, they have free will and they are able to make choices on their own apart from us. As our children get older and they transition into young adulthood, there's going to be influences in their lives that are going to be affecting them. Their own feelings, friends, movies, music, the world. And they're going to have to make some choices about how much they allow those influences to affect them. Sometimes they may remain strong. Other times they may choose to go with the flow. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes we as Christians sometimes just aren't careful enough when we just kind of go with the flow and really don't think about what we're doing. Same thing can happen with our children as they get older. So I want to encourage you as parents that we may train our children as they're growing up to dress modestly, perhaps in skirts and dresses as we do in our family. Maybe when they get older, they won't continue to dress the way we taught them to. And that can be discouraging for us. But we don't need to allow ourselves to become overly discouraged. We just need to give them to the Lord in prayer, continue to love them, and to guide them in the ways that we can as they are transitioning into adulthood. And just know that they have to make their own choices about things. It doesn't mean that we did something wrong in training them to dress modestly. It just means that they have free will. So as parents, we need to raise our children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, to train them in the way we should go and be faithful to that. And as long as we know that we have done our best to be faithful to that, not perfectly, nobody's perfect, but overall, we have done our best. And we know that we have done our best to be faithful to the Lord in this way, in our parenting. I believe that we can have peace, even if our children sometimes don't make the decisions that we train them to make. So if you want to know more about the modesty issue, I have another video about my personal modesty standards and a second one about biblical modesty standards, where we really look more in depth at what the Bible presents as standards for modesty. You might be surprised at some of the things we look at there. And I have a blog post where I talk about modesty standards for our children, where I go a little bit into more detail than I have in this video. I'd love to hear your comments about this issue. What do you think about how we as Christian parents should be raising our children when it comes to the modesty issue? Do you have some experiences that you would like to share, or maybe some tips or an encouragement? So that's all for today. I look forward to reading your comments. Bye until next time.